Hello! This is a video of an interview I did with my good friend and co-producer Arthur Mellor for my new album Earth Volume 2. We talk about recording and mixing the album and mastering it as well, and all the stuff we had to go through dealing with that. However, my camera ran out of storage halfway through filming, so the video just kind of cuts, so I've replaced it with some super cool CSGO surfing, which is not mine. I'll link where I got it from in the description. But yeah, we get super nerdy and super technical, so put it on in the background, get some food or whatever, and I hope you enjoy.
Hard.
All I'm saying is, why is it called Piano Man if there's a fucking lot of harmonica in it? Hi.
Hi. Welcome to Over Studios. If you're watching this, that means Volume 2 is now out. Please go and stream it.
On all streaming services.
On all streaming platforms. That is, this is like a weird misconception that people don't get. Like, it's out everywhere.
Yes.
Like, I had a friend being like, oh, I downloaded Spotify just to listen to your song. I
You
use
do
Apple
not
Music.
have to do
Yeah,
that.
dude, it's on Apple Music. Just go.
Anything you use,
yeah.
it'll be on.
Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer. You ever use Deezer?
I have used Deezer.
I used to be a Deezer guy back in the day.
Yeah.
Deezer, Tidal, Pandora, I think as well. It's on everything.
Yes.
So please go listen to it.
There really isn't an excuse to not.
There is not an excuse. I've been working on this album for 3 years. For those who don't know him, this is the one and only Arthur Mellor, who is...
Hello.
Let's list them off. Co-producer, recording engineer, soul mixing engineer, we'll get to that in a second, co-writer, lead guitarist, and am I missing anything else?
I don't think you are.
Been my sort of partner in crime in making this album and all things great and holy that I've done.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make this video because usually when I make my music and I make my albums, there's a very like only me solo, almost like sort of vacuum sealed kind of process. But this is the first time I've had someone else sort of help me do all the parts I usually do by myself. And I wanted to get that sort of outside in perspective on it. So Arthur, as recording engineer, what did we use for this album?
Before we start, I would like to acknowledge that, as you were saying before, this is your first time passing off some responsibility to someone else. And I think, honestly, as an artist myself, it's a huge undertaking in order to trust someone else with your music. So I'm very appreciative that you chose me. It makes it easier because we live together. But I am very appreciative. What did we use? Mm-hmm. We used everything we have here at Mellor Studios. You can go follow us on Instagram. The tag is at Mellor Studios. We can mix and master for you. We don't cut any corners.
Shoot us a DM. We're always open.
As a guitarist, I'm going to start with guitars. Mm-hmm. We used nearly every single guitar we have here. For most of the electrics, which you hear on the album, they were Joe's Fender, things like standard American Stratocaster.
These are the Player Series, I think is what it is.
In the Player Series, it is in baby blue. It is an absolutely lovely guitar called April. Mm-hmm. Which we used DI in. Sounds brilliant. For the acoustics, we used my Taylor CE 214 or 214. Doesn't really matter. Which I bought off a good friend of mine, good family friend, Jack Harris, who makes absolutely amazing folk music. You should also check him out. His Instagram handle is jharrisfolk, I think. I'll have to check that. But he makes absolutely wonderful folk music. It's inspired how I play. It's just fantastic. For the second acoustic we use in this album, it is a Tanglewood, which I have strung up in Nashville style. And for those of you who don't know what that is a string set for a 12-string guitar. And you only take the higher octave of each of the strings and then string that on a regular 6-string. So it basically gets you an octave up, and combined with a regular acoustic guitar, it just gets a lovely, rich sound, which is just full of extra harmonics, and just makes it sound really bright, fun, and jangly. For a lot of the supporting guitars, which I'm going to dub them just sort of the metal guitars of the album, I used my my Yamaha inspired Telecaster, which I have put a modded hot rod single coil humbucker pickup into the bridge, which runs insanely hot, which is incredibly good for metal guitars. And last but not least, for regular electric guitar, we actually used an 8-string on this album, we have used a Strandberg
we did.
Metal 8 string.
That's a behemoth.
Yeah, it's a great guitar, which we used for the octave down supporting layers in U-tone. For the bass, we only use one bass. We only have one bass currently. It's not in the style it was intended for, but we are using a Dingwall Combustion 5 string. Absolutely lovely guitar. Fan frets. It's got that very clanky modern metal sound, but we used it and tried to sculpt it so it would have a more round Fender jazz bass or precision bass tone for this album. And it works a treat. Moving on to the amp section of the album, we use nearly everything at the time. Once again, that's just a theme of this album is maximalism.
Yeah, we did everything.
We did everything. For the main electric guitar tone, which you'll hear all over the album, we used a Fractal Audio Axfx 2 for the preamp section. And for that, we used an amp model called Boutique 1, which is an emulation of a matchless amp. I'm not sure of the name of the amp or the serial. Not sure. But we then had that running into the power amp of a 5153, which is a metal amp, but it had the nicest quality power amp for the album, I would say. I did try it out with multiple power amps, and this was just the best. That was running out of the 5150 into my Marshall Silver Jubilee 2x12 cab, which was mic'd up with a 3-mic setup. It was a Lewitt LCT 140 Air and 2 SM57s run in a Fredman technique. So that's one straight on and one at a 45-degree angle in order to induce some pleasant phase cancellation. So the high mids and the highs are a lot smoother. The LCT 140, great mic by Lewitt, please sponsor us, is a fantastic mic for acoustic guitar. Like that is the main acoustic guitar mic we use, and it just shines.
So good.
We used a lot of the supporting guitars. I just did like power chords on the Yamaha through the PV6505 into my Mesa Boogie 2x12, single SM57, just as support guitar. Just out straight in. That was it. For Colorblind and Beside You, we used the Marshall Silver Jubilee Mini Head and the Orange 8140, respectively. For Colorblind, we wanted more of like a sort of throaty Marshall tone for the chorus. Really get that washy shoegaze sound, I want to say. That was the goal for that song. And so we used the Marshall for that, which has a very interesting texture in the song. And then we used the 8140 for support guitar on Beside You, which I don't think you knew about at the time. I just said I did like new guitars with the same miking technique. And then added that in and just had to get it in phase, slotted it in. It sounds lovely. I am a big fan of Sam Pura at the Panda Studios, and the Story's Fun, all the bands that he works on. I think he's a fantastic engineer. And one of his like staple amps is the Orange 8140. And I was like, after hearing it, I was like, I've got to pick one up. We even used the Dark Glass M900 and the Zilla bass cab for track 10, If Everything's a Lie. It didn't end up getting used. Yeah. Which is fine. No, it actually is fine. I think, when you get into the mindset of recording an album, being the recording engineer and mix engineer, you have to be conscious of what actually serves the song. Yeah. And we tried to change bits on if everything, and it just wasn't working. So Joe said it'd probably be best if we left it, and I had to agree. For vocals, we used a Slate Digital VMS, stands for Virtual Mic System 1, which is a large diaphragm condenser mic. As a whole, it is a blank slate. So when you record something, it's not going to sound particularly special. What makes it so special is that afterwards in the virtual mix rack software, you can impart a mic model onto it. So you can make it sound like your favorite microphone, like your Neumann U87s, your U47s, your Sony C100Gs, your Telefunken ELA M251s, your AKG C12s. I could go on. So we ran that blank slate through this preamp behind me, the Focusrite ISA1, a lovely preamp, into a Warm Audio WA76, an emulation of the iconic 1176 compressor, which I was not aware upon first recording that we were absolutely smashing the compression on this album. When the first song we recorded together was Switzerland. Because I was so eager to get working on this album, I set the preamp output way too hot. And it was going into the compressor, which had relatively moderate conservative settings. And it was just getting absolutely pummeled. It was just minus 20 nearly the whole time. But it sounded pretty good. And thankfully we've stuck with it. But yeah, I think I've explained all the chains for the album. Yeah. If I've missed anything or if you have any questions, please do send either myself, Joe, or us a DM on Instagram. My handle is @ArthurMellor.
Obviously, usually when I work on my own music, like I've said before, it's a very sort of like solo by myself experience. And obviously Arthur helped me with the recording, but where Arthur really helped me was in the mixing, because my laptop stopped working. No matter, I think we have an answer to it now, even though it doesn't really explain it. We have an answer what happened. But for whatever reason, my laptop just could not like play the audio, any audio from this album, specifically from this album, which means I couldn't mix it. Like I could, for one song, for Disappointing, I couldn't get a bar in without an error message coming up. So it was impossible to mix. So I had to grit my teeth and be like, Arthur, you're going to have to do the mixing by yourself. So yeah, I mean, what was that like? Because originally the whole plan was that we would both do a mix and we sort of A/B between the bits we like.
And try and get the best end product.
Yeah, like a kind of like Frankenstein thing. Yeah, having to like just sort of do it by yourself.
I would say it's been a very important formative experience of just sort of mixing as a whole. Like I've done plenty of mixes before this, but this was really the first time that I've done a full album. Sort of, you know, thinking about all these very important details that come along with making an album, the general cohesion. Because we have on Earth Volume 2 quite a lot of differing styles. Yeah. And it's sort of, obviously that falls slightly upon Joe's shoulders in the mastering process to make it all sound similar in volume and general EQ curve.
Which is a ball ache.
Yes. But it is ultimately my responsibility, or it was my responsibility as the mix engineer, to make everything A, sound really good, and B, sound like it's on the same album. So I went into it after we'd finished the production of all the songs, and I did the first 3 band songs of the album, because as you may or may not know, depending on whether you've listened to the album or not, there are sea shanties on the album. So I just thought, you know, let's start with the band songs, because I think more attention should be put onto them for the time being, because the sea shanties are more transitional songs between them, which is still important. So I tried 3 different mixing styles on those 3 songs, which were New Turn Who Dis, Together, and Colorblind. And I sent them to Joe, just did them all in the weekend, thinking not much of it. I received very, very positive feedback about Together.
Yes. I mean, I basically just responded, yeah, this sounds great, let's put on DistroKid. And you were like, it's not done.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
No, it was just trying to get the general gist of the album. Yeah. The general style. Because I'd obviously been given reference tracks.
Sorry.
It was good. I was quite excited because it gave me something to do over the summer. Yeah. Like summer during uni, when you don't have a job per se, you need ways to fill the time, and this did take up quite a considerable amount of time. Yeah.
What I've been saying is that, like, for Arthur, this has just been like a fun summer project, and for me, it feels like it's been like 3 years in hell. Like,
I would disagree. I think I lie somewhere in between those two perspectives, because as of the time of recording this, we have spent pretty much a year on this album.
Yeah.
Pretty much a year. And that's probably a quarter, a third. But in my own time, I spent a lot of time with this album, going through, doing the editing for certain things, certain elements, generally producing it, engineering it, countless hours of reamping. I have spent a decent amount, but I've enjoyed pretty much every moment of it.
The way this all kind of came about was purely by accident, where we were just hanging out one day and you wanted to look through the Volume 2 demos. And then next thing you know, we're kind of working on the first song and just kind of like going through it. So what was that feeling like, kind of realizing like, okay, I'm locked in now. I'm working on this album.
It's hard to say. There was, as you said, just that initial feeling of locking into the album, of just getting into that area of eustress, where I can just focus and think about what is the right way to go about all of this, every single element. I want to have it planned out, but also have that sort of sense of spontaneity.
Yeah.
The initial feeling I had, I was excited to work on the project, but I had this nagging feeling in the back of my mind, which was it was a thought of how much writing or arranging am I going to have to do for this album? Because I asked about the Earth Volume 2 demos, semi-assuming that it was a done album.
And it almost was.
And it almost was. Thankfully, in the state it was in at the beginning, I didn't really know the album track list at all. There wasn't a set track list until about 3/4 the way through, where we were sort of axing and adding new songs.
Yeah.
But I was incredibly excited to work on it. But it was just one of those things where it just sort of started happening one day and then continued happening. And I was just very happy that it was happening. All the way up until now, and now we're finished.
Yeah, because I think we had a majority of the songs. We didn't have, obviously, Beside You wasn't written then, and a couple wasn't written then. But like the sort of like blueprint of how the album flows was there.
Yeah, and it was, and Joe explained the storyline of Earth, Earth as a whole, and Earth Volume 2 going into and coming from its that's Earth Volume 1 and Earth Volume 3. And then actually, I'm gonna put some in real quick for the ARG, which may or may not exist.
Go on.
This is gonna be
going through this whole process of like the whole year of recording and mixing this album. What would you say were like your favorite bits to record, or like favorite moments of recording?
I'm going to start off by saying my favorite songs to record, and then get more specific as we go. My favorite songs to record were Together. I think at the top has to be Together, because that song was done in about a day and a half. It was so quick. It was a demo. I loved it the first time I heard it. The guitar tracking for it was so quick. Bass done, drums so quick.
Yeah.
Vocals really quick. And the day after, I also recorded some lead guitar for that song, which actually came as quite a surprise to me, because in this album, Joe would just turn to me and go, "Can you do a lead for this?" Or "Can you write a solo for this?" And I was quite out of practice, because I specialize more in being a producer than an artist these days. And I was like, "Ooh, okay, yeah, sure."
Yeah, and you did it.
And I did it. I just sort of,
really good.
Yeah, thank you. Change is always a good one. That's track 8, I think.
Yeah.
Try and find a way to change. I really enjoyed recording that song and mixing, because it is just it's so simple,
But it's massive.
But it's massive, and in terms of layering and arranging, which I think is the key point in Change, it's an absolute behemoth of a song in terms of arrangement and layering. We've got literally everything on that song. We've got guitars, we've got electric guitars, like the metal guitars. We've got acoustics on there. We've got bass. We have orchestral elements. We've got synths and we've got drums. We've got vocals, loads of vocal harmonies, loads of doubles. It's just packed to the brim. And it was, I think it was like a multi-day deal. It was.
Yeah. Took us like 2 or 3 days, I think.
Yeah. But it was just so fun because it was just so simple. And it, it employed every single technique, like of sort of miking up the acoustics, the miking up the electrics, bass engineering, vocal engineering. It had everything. Yeah. What were your favorites?
I think Together is definitely a standout. I remember that very, very vividly because it was still in sort of like the time when when you were learning about the track list,
yes,
and learning about the songs as we were recording them. And there's a snippet at the end of Together where I'm just like, yeah, and that's it, because that was literally me turning to Arthur and being like, yeah, the song's done now. We can this is it. That's it. That's the song.
Yeah, because I always am wary of how much space to leave in a song, depending on whether Joe wants to do a certain transition or whether it's quite important where a song ends.
Yeah. And then I one that was, I guess, not really like so special to record, but like was really, really exciting just to see come to fruition was Switzerland. Because Switzerland, it's old. It's older than Earth Volume 1.
Yes, yeah, it is.
Not by a lot, but it is. And yeah, it's I don't really see it as my song as well, even though I'm pretty sure I did write it. But like the experience and the meaning behind it is not mine.
No, of course.
So, and
I mean, because obviously there are 2 features on this album.
Yes.
2 like explicit features.
But one of them on Switzerland is Louise, just goes by Louise.
Just go by.
And then the artist on If Everything's a Lie, the first half, is GMR, who are both wonderful friends of mine who I've known for a very long time now and are both incredible people, incredible singers. Yeah, especially Louise is a classically trained singer. We love you, Louise.
We do. We absolutely do.
Fun fact about Switzerland, which is kind of like very musical theatre-y, is that in the original, I don't know if I ever played you the original demo of Switzerland.
You might have done.
I might have done. But in like that outro bit, there's supposed to be like a fake argument going on. That's supposed to be, this is a really fun story actually.
Oh, wow.
So, fun fact, I'm going to tell this story. Fun fact, so when we were doing that, so it was me and Louise arguing, but obviously because we were both at the mic, we needed someone to engineer. So we got our music tech teacher, Dotan, to engineer for us.
Oh,
Shout out Dotan if you're watching this.
Dotan.
So imagine this, right? So there's like a road N2A, right? Like figure of 8 pattern between me and you. And then in like a sort of like glass window here is Dotan at like his little desk, like peering through. We're fucking going at each other. We're screaming at the top of our lungs.
Has he got monitoring on? Could he hear the conversation?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh my God.
100%. Luckily Dotan's chill like that, so he just let us do it. Okay. But the kicker of the story is that as we're doing this, we hear the door open. The fucking school security has come in being like, what's going on? Why are you guys like fighting? So we're just sitting there with like these big headphones on being like, we're recording a song. It was like crazy. I'm a little bit sad that like we didn't keep it, but also I think I've lost those files. I think.
Right. Okay, yeah.
Because I think I tried to look for them recently and I couldn't find them. If I have found them, I'll put them in now because they're really funny. They're really funny. This is what, if I find it, put this in. This is one specific bit because obviously like an improv fight thing.
Yeah.
And Louise goes, but what about the kids? And I just pause and just go, what?
What fucking kids?
Like, what kids? What do you want about?
Kids! You've never been here for them! What? That's just what?
So yeah, so seeing Switzerland kind of be like sort of rebirthed in this way was super like exciting.
Cathartic?
Yeah, cathartic. And being like, it's like, wow, like this is like a whole different thing, but it's the same and it's like so cool. Change was also a big one for me because I did a lot of guitars in one take and it's like a 5-minute long song, so I was really proud about that.
Yes, yeah, that is something that is true actually. One of the highlights I would like to bring up is also in Together. There are some shout vocals in the second verse.
Oh yeah.
Which we built a mini fort out of the rock wall panels that I have, and blankets that Joe owned. And we had him in this like isolation booth, slightly hunched over and just screaming into this microphone. One of my favorite bits also put together was the fact that I got to record live guitars.
Yeah.
Because for most of this album, we just did DIs in using virtual amps, using Joe's boutique amp sim that he uses on Logic.
Yeah.
Stock one. And then we'd reamp later. And that reamping would be a whole ordeal. We'd test out multiple cabs, multiple mics before we landed on what we landed on. But I mean, that's just sort of a theme of my involvement in terms of engineering and mixing the album. Is I was just trying to take these demos and really just pump them with some like steroids. Because the original demo sounded good. It sounded really good. And I said, we can make this better though. We can make this.
Yeah.
So I basically, I didn't want to interfere too much with Joe's original vision, but just try and elevate it as much as I could. So I just basically took Joe's guitar tone and tried to make it sound more full. We same with the bass. Drums were mostly your programming and drum selection choice. I did sort of make some executive decisions on the kick, I think. But we also included samples that we recorded ourselves. We have our own sample library, which we have been slowly adding to, just with various kicks and kick mics. So, you know, we can make your song and your tracks, if you decide to send us tracks, just sound that bit more alive. What do you have a least favorite track for recording? Fair enough.
Least favorite to record? New Tone. 100% New Tone.
Yes. Also, Colorblind.
Yeah. Because the thing is, I think New Tone for me was a lot of like a personal thing. Like that first like take, it like haunts me.
Yeah.
It took us so long just to do that one note. I didn't think I did it right then, but like, cause it like
it was just so it was so many takes, not because of pitch. It was because of just
like delivery.
Yeah, just enunciation of just sort of getting that first like take right.
Because that's what opens the album, really.
Big band song, you got to like come in strong, hard hitting. And so we really overthought that for quite a long time.
Another favorite bit of recording that you just reminded me was Drunken Sailor.
Oh yeah,
because we got you on Drunken Sailor.
Yes, I'm actually quite loud in Drunken Sailor.
You are,
which I wasn't intending to be, but you know, there we are. But we recorded Drunken Sailor in multiple places. We recorded it in our home studio here at Mellor Studios in the old house. We recorded it also at the university studios with some friends.
Yeah.
And it was something like the lights were turned off. They were they were drunk pirates on a ship.
It's me and my buddy Linus, by the way.
And there's some fantastic
like weird improv we were
weird
doing.
Spur of the moment improv that's in there, and
which is really fun.
Which you can't beat.
I also recorded Drunken Sailor at my old college with my partner actually.
Yes.
My partner who lives in America came to England, and on the first day we started dating, fun fact, I took them to the studio and mostly to just like hang out, play instruments and stuff. And I was like, hey, I need to get some recording done. Would you mind? And thank God they were like, no, it's okay. Let's do some recording.
Did you also get New Tone then? Because the original demo of New Tone also has Joe's partner on it.
Yes.
So that was the same day.
What about in the mixing process? Because obviously I was not a part of the mixing process.
No.
Aside from my feedback. So what was it like mixing the album?
I don't think I felt incredibly stressed. I was once again just focused. I had a job and I needed to get it done. But I also needed to be conscious of the small details which really make or break a production, which is making everything sound coherent and making it sound like it's on the same album, which is also the responsibility of the mastering engineer. But that's sort of really building the songs from the ground up comes from the production and the mixing. In all honesty, there wasn't too much mixing to be done Because I hold a belief that is mixing starts with the tuning of the instruments, with the strings. Every single minute detail needs to be paid attention to. So the tuning, what mic you use, how you mic it, the distance, everything, the gain. You're already mixing without mixing traditionally, is my sort of mindset to it. So you want the best source tones you can going in. So I'd say we probably spent more time on the engineering and production of this album than we did the mixing.
Oh, 100%.
Because I just wanted to get everything right at the source. That's why we used like a 3-mic guitar technique. We used multiple amps. We were very selective about the drums. So when it came to mixing, it was actually quite easy. As mentioned previously, I started mixing this album with the first 3 full band songs, which are New Tone, Colorblind, and Together, not in that order. And I pretty much cracked the code on Together. So that sort of set the stage for the rest of the album. So a lot of stuff was copied over, but then for the individual needs of the song, you tweak it slightly so it fits. But it also, in the mixing process and throughout the production process, I thought it was very important to maintain Joe's sound as an artist. And that included because he'd sent me a lot of his old sessions, going through those sessions, picking out bits I really liked, and then trying to incorporate Joe's processing, Joe's touch throughout the album. Because it's all well and good trying to make it sound like a very commercial, very sort of standardized rock album, but there needs to be. It's still an album by Joseph O'Sullivan. It needs to be you. So I included a lot of the effects and the processing, like a lot of the vocal reverbs, distortion effects that you used, and there would be sometimes where I'd send mixed revisions back, and you'd say, "Can you use this pedal on this vocal with these settings?"
Yeah, that was a big thing on Disappointing, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, the vocal distortion, which we eventually got right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of my favorite and least favorite to mix.
I think if we talk about the mix specifically, my favorite song is Switzerland. I think the mix on Switzerland is beautiful.
Yeah?
I love it.
Damn,
It
okay.
hits so hard.
Okay.
So hard. I love it.
Oh, that's not what I was expecting. Because my favorite track to mix was probably Beside You and Try and Find a Way to Change. Try and Find a Way to Change was done in 4 hours.
Really?
Start to finish. And then obviously there were like the bulk of it was done in 4 hours. And there was a lot of stuff to do in the song because it's so dense. It was carving out space for all of the instruments, adding all the effects, putting little tricks in so that the chorus is big, sounds not too small, like by comparison. Because like if you make the chorus larger than life, then the sort of the verse can fall flat. But it's all about maintaining balance. Because of how dense that song is, it was just carving out space for everything. Because you've got so many elements, so many tracks in that song.
Yeah,
I mean, across Earth Volume 2, there are on average over 100 tracks in each song. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. So it's just carving out a lot of space and making sure everything is heard, which really is the kick of the album. But yeah, Change was incredibly enjoyable. There was just like a lot of automation to do. Yeah, which took up most of my time. Really, Beside You was another one that I really the album mix.
Yeah, because you were adamant on doing this album mix.
I was.
I didn't get it for the longest time.
It was just about rebalancing because like the balance of the first mix is off, but I liked like the vocal balance.
Right.
And the things with this one is that I got the instrumental mix pretty much down quite quickly. I was fitting the vocals in, which was really difficult. And finding ways for the harmonies to come through. Because there are a lot of like, I'd say almost Queen-inspired harmonies in this song. Yeah. Like the Better Than I Ever Will line. So it's finding ways for those to sort of like really cut through. and make the vocal sound big in the chorus. Because I don't think there are many harmonies on the chorus until the end. So it's all about just making that one vocal with lots of doubles sound like one big vocal. Harmonies on this album are a particular point I would like to bring something to, I'd say. Because I'm pretty proud of the harmonies on this album, because I think we both came up with the harmonies.
Yeah.
But I was the one who initially had the idea, like, let's do harmonies on this album. Because Earth Volume 1, Joe's previous album, is more of an acoustic folk album. But a lot of the harmonies are inspired by Jacob Collier, so they're very...
like chordal, very like kind of blocky.
Very chordal, blocky, maximalist. And so it was sort of strange to pivot to Earth Volume 2, which was going to be an indie rock album. Usually, depending on the style, there aren't many harmonies. But I just sort of was listening to it, and I was like, it just needs a bit more. Like, obviously, I could, if we, hypothetically, if worst side comes to worst, I could have just made that one vocal sound big and could have been the end of it. But by adding the harmonies in it, it added just a texture which really elevated it. But harmonies not only served as sort of like a textural element, but they also served as like a bridge, I think, from Earth Volume 1 to 2. And another point I'd like to bring up is I tried to convince you to put more synth in the second half of Earth Volume 2 in order to bridge the gap to Earth Volume 3. What do you think the easiest and hardest song would be to mix? Because I think there's sort of a misconception. The amount of effort put into a song does not dictate how easy or hard it was to mix, or like enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because with the change mix, there was a hell of a lot of things to do, but it was easy because I was just so focused.
I think the hardest mix by far would have been Colorblind.
And you would be right.
Yeah.
That was my least favorite to mix in the album.
It was my least favorite to record. Colorblind is a cursed song. It's a great song.
No, it really is. It really is.
We had so many issues throughout the entire process of... When it came down to mastering, we had issues with Colorblind.
Yeah. Yeah, we still had to go back and fix stuff.
Yeah.
Production, engineering.
And Colorblind is a song I've had for a while now. Probably, I think, like just after Earth Volume 1 came out. So about just under 2 years. And I remember when it came to the day we were going to like record Colorblind, I had to sit Arthur down and be like, this is going to suck. This process is going to suck. And he looked at me and he went, it's not going to suck. It's going to be fine, Joe. And it sucked. It fucking sucked.
I sort of had the misplaced confidence of a character in like a slasher film. like a teen slasher. Like, oh.
I tried to warn you, dude. I tried to warn you.
I was like, oh, this cabin in the woods? Oh, this ain't shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be fine.
Yeah. Of course we should split up and search for clues.
Of course. It wasn't... Yeah, Colorblind was a nightmare in terms of just general logistics. Like we had latency issues, crazy latency issues, where I would check every single parameter that could possibly be causing it, and nothing would prove fruitful. Like I'd check the buffer size, I'd check all my connections, I'd check the outboard gear I was using, the mics, the amps. I'd check everything, and it just still wouldn't work. So I'd have to like manually drag it and find like samples it is out of time, go from there. But it was also a case of just generally exporting, and this was a problem on Switzerland as well. I remember I a lot of stuff was like an eighth note out of time. Like the snare bottom was like an eighth note out of time for some reason. It just
no idea how this happened.
Done it during exporting, and so I came upstairs one day and Joe was just like,
nothing's working.
Nothing's working. I'm like, okay, let's have a look. And it was slightly nightmarish that when things just don't export correctly. Yeah.
I was gonna say something else, but I completely forgot. But however, as much as we dog on Colorblind, it does have one of the coolest moments of the album.
Oh, agreed. I'm glad you brought that up. We're gonna say the same thing.
Yeah.
It is the section, the second half of the solo section, where there's like a descending phrase, there's a drop, and then there's like a really short fade in for the guitars. Oh my
so good.
God, it's immaculate. I'm telling you, it's incredible. You've got to go listen to that bit. It's just so good.
And like I don't know if you clocked, but like the drum part changes to fit with the like
it does. Like
it's so good.
Yeah, the general pacing, in that solo section, it's very, very good.
Yeah, 100%. Oh my god, that song was great. But yeah, even in the master, this is something I found out in mastering actually, is that I had a big struggle mastering this album. This is probably the toughest mastering project I've ever done.
Yeah.
I think half of that is because it's my own music, and it's kind of rule of thumb, you don't master your own music. Because you got to think about it in a different way than like you would as an artist. But I think the main reason was essentially because you had done half the job for me already. Because
getting the mix to sound like finished.
Well, sound finished, but it's also in like the saturation.
Yeah.
These mixes are very heavily saturated, and I didn't kind of account for that when I did my mastering. So I do like my regular mastering chain, just kind of going through the process, bounce it out, and I'd be like, what did I do? How did I fuck this up?
Yeah.
And essentially, like there's
over-egging it.
Yeah, there's one, maybe even two songs where the mastering is literally just like a like no coloration Apple Units compressor, just bringing it up to volume, and that's it. These projects are so, like these mixes, are so well saturated that actually any more saturation would make them
just
sound
push
awful.
them over the edge.
Yeah. So that was like a big sort of like lesson for me. It's such like a cursed mastering session to look at, because one will have like a million plugins and one will just literally just be like three or something like that. But it works. There was a big thing in mastering as well of we were testing it on is it in here? The speaker?
No, it's a small Anchor sound core. So we tried it on the Anchor sound core, and it was the last stage of the mastering process. I remember this quite well.
I wanted to kill somebody, bro.
We were testing it on the speaker, and I was just testing how much is it pumping, how much kick and snare transient are we getting through on the speaker? Is it too much? Is it too little? And most of the time it would be too much, and it was to do with my bus compression settings, so I had to adjust in order to get it right. But we were just sort of sitting downstairs listening to it on the speaker, and Joe at that point just really wanted this album to be done.
Yeah,
and I was like, no, we've got some more stuff to do.
I remember so vividly as well, because we, like everyone who we live with at the moment was in the room.
Yes,
we were in our living room. I was playing Skate 3, and we were playing out the speaker as just sort of like, this kind of like our listening test. Usually with mixes in general, it's kind of like, if we can listen to it while doing something and not notice something in the mix, then it's a good mix. So yeah, that's what we were doing. And again, Arthur was just like, there's a pumping issue we need to fix. And I was so done at this point. I had essentially just like curled into a ball on the floor, and he was like, okay, I guess I'll go upstairs and fix it then.
Yeah.
I did not want to like hear it. I was so done. Well, then the last thing I want to ask you is that if today we were going to remake a volume 2 from the ground up, what would you change to what we did it the first time around?
Live drums.
Yeah. Live drums. It would have like doubled the amount of time we would need.
It would have, and I think a lot of the parts would have needed changing, because a lot of this album is quite Goodkin inspired.
Yes.
Am I allowed to say that?
Yes, 100%.
So a lot of the time it's very fast, very fast paced 16th notes on the sort of like hi-hat, like at BPMs of like 170, which is like your drummer's arm is gonna like fall off, because their other arm is like already occupied, so like they're gonna have to do this with like one arm or something. But I mean, the wish if I had a wish, it would probably be to have all the stuff I have now.
Yeah.
at the beginning of the Earth album cycle. You gotta do the best with what you got.
Yeah. So and that's what we did.
And that's what we did.
That is what we did.
Yeah, is there anything you would go back and change?
Ooh, we should have set up like our standard, like at the start of recording, like how we plan out our sessions, how we record stuff, because it was when we were getting ready for the mix sessions, there was a lot of agony over, especially in songs like New Tone, we had lead parts that didn't have DIs and such.
Yes.
So that was very sort of annoying to deal with, is that there was some stuff we couldn't go back and reamp if we wanted to.
But we made it work.
Yeah, we made it work, and it sounds great. Yeah, I think that would be the main thing, is just like figure out the rules before we started going for it. And I think from like a personal level, it was kind of like clue you in on like the whole sort of story and what's going on from the start, to help you kind of get the image and like help you as a sort of like a co-producer role. Yeah, because I think there was a lot of like discussions of like, okay, so this is like after the tape. So it's like this. And I was like, yeah, it's like after the tape, but like before the second sea shanty. You'd be like, there's a second sea shanty. I was like, yeah, dude, like,
yeah. Just feeling a bit, but I remember feeling a bit bewildered by a lot of the stuff.
Yeah,
but, you know.
it was. We had a big conversation during the mixing process, because you were trying to like plot out like a sort of thematic scheme of it, and I was like, this is not what the album's about.
I
And you were like, what do you
came
mean?
up with like transitions, and like I was like, oh, I could, you know, I can hear this song in this location. So I was like, I could go to the beach. I could record myself like running on this beach with like footsteps and stuff.
Yeah.
And like the waves going in and out. And Joe was like, hold on.
It was like, that's not what any of this is about, bro.
And I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I think I finally got like the story through my head.
Yeah.
More towards like the end mixing process and mastering.
Yeah.
Beginning of mastering process. Yeah. I think for any like subsequent projects, I'll probably be more clued in.
Yeah. I don't regret anything we did. I think this album is incredible, and I'm so glad it's over.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Yeah.
Here's to many more.
Here's to many more. Earth Volume 2 is an album I've been working on for a very, very long time, for about 3 years, before even Earth Volume 1. But yeah, I'm very, very, very proud of this album, and I'm very happy it's done, and I'm very excited for you all to listen to it. If you would, please give me the chance.
Right.
Yeah. Earth Volume 2 by Joseph O'Sullivan is out now. 11 tracks, technically 12, and they're all pretty good, and please listen to it.
Woo!